Hello, inventors. My name's Greg Hart with AppColl. We are a tool for allowing companies to provide inventors with an online interface for submitting invention disclosures. And we're going to walk through that process to give you a rough idea of what's involved. So we're an online service, and there's two ways to log in. One is through a login and password from this URL here. The other is if your company is set up single sign-on, where you would have some kind of an app page that would have a icon or tile for AppColl that you can authenticate right in. In this case, we're using a login and password. You would receive that from your company if that's the route you were going to take. So we're going to go ahead and log in. First thing you're going to see is a dashboard of some different pieces of information. So the first thing is the workflow. Every workflow can vary. This is our standard out-of-the-box workflow that may or may not be the same that your company uses, and your company may have a slightly different or a drastically different workflow. But the idea is that each status has a block, and then within each block are arrows that represent an action that somebody can take to move it to the next block. For the most part, anything that is this very light, yellowish orange is something that inventors can do. So an inventors can take an idea that is unfinished, something that you've worked on, and submit it. And then you may get a push from a reviewer or perhaps a patent committee to rework your disclosure and then send it back to this step here. You also have a list of all your disclosures. So you will only see disclosures where you are an inventor, whether it's a first named or a co-inventor. You'll see all your inventions and only your inventions. If you click on a row, it'll open up the details of that invention, which we'll cover in a few minutes. You also see these numbers in these different blocks. That represents how many of your disclosures are in this status. So if we click on unfinished, it'll filter your disclosures to just show the ones that are that status. And here are two that are submitted, etc. You also have a couple of charts that you can set up. So here we have disclosures created per year for this inventor. So you can see that 5 were created in 2018, 3 were created in 2024. You can click on the pencil icon and pick from a number of different reports. And then you can choose bar, column, or line. So you've got those types of options to change the other charts, and they hold when you log out and come back in the next day, for example. We also have a view list button. So a view list gives you just that, a list of all your disclosures with a little bit more information. First of all, we see they all have a reference number. These get assigned automatically. Anything that's got a value under actions means the inventor has something to do. In this case, it's to submit an unfinished disclosure. If they have a title, they will show up here, and then who the inventors are. The other button you see here, first of all, we have our add button, which we're going to do in a moment. We also have a download disclosure form button, which I won't cover, but basically you have the option of downloading a form fillable PDF that represents the online disclosure form that you can fill out in Adobe, for example, email it back into AppColl, and that creates the disclosure. But we're not going to go into much detail on that. We're going to add a disclosure. So this is one example of a disclosure form. Your company will invariably have a different form that has the type of information that your legal department would require. Starting from the top, we've got title. So every disclosure needs a title. Anything in red is a required field. So we've just got a couple here. Next is inventors. So by default, the inventor logged in will be listed, and then you can add additional. So maybe you want to add Inventor 2. You should have a list that appears of all folks in your company that can be an inventor. Next, you may or may not see prompts for products, technologies, or keywords. This is optional. In my test sandbox here, I have values for these, and if you click add, you'll see the ability to add one or more options, and they'll appear here. And you got trash can icons if you want to delete anything. This one's required, so we're going to add in a keyword. Next, you have a documents platform where you can drag and drop anything associated with your disclosure into the form. So if you've got white papers or algorithms, software code, whatever it may be, you can drag and drop as many documents as you need. And then we've got a handful of basic questions: summary of invention, date of conception. Has this been disclosed to anyone outside your company? Date fields, you basically get a calendar you can populate. I just put this in to show that you can have multi-select drop-downs throughout here, and then a detailed description. This one's obviously very simple. When you are working on a disclosure, I highly recommend you save regularly. We do not auto-save, so if you populate text in a bunch of boxes and your browser crashes or something like that, and you'll lose the data unless you click Apply Changes, which saves the data but keeps you on the same page. We'll save everything and put you back to the previous page you were on. So we're going to click Apply Changes. This actually creates the disclosure, assigns it a number, gives you a current status and what the action to be taken is. Now, one new thing that showed up is a PDF document here. If you open that, you'll see just the values that have been put into the disclosure. Anything that's been typed in will show up in here. And then each time you save the disclosure, it'll update the revision so you can have multiple revisions. So next thing, I want to go back to the view list. And now you can see IDF 15 has the action to submit. Now, before you submit, you may have Inventor 2 that wants to work on this. They can log in, open the same disclosure form, add some content, and click Save. And then when either of you are ready, you can click the Submit button to send the disclosure along. So I'm going to open the disclosure again. Click Submit. You're going to get a pop-up where you can enter comments. These comments will show up in the disclosure in this comments pane on the right. And it just is a running total or any comments left by people. That could be yourself, other inventors, it could be tech reviewers, it could be committee members, attorneys, whoever it needs to be. So let's just put in this idea. And then we get taken back to the list view, and we can see there's no longer an action to submit. It has been pushed on. So we'll go back to the view flow, and it would have gone from here to here. And again, if you click on the box, we can see here our IDF 15 that we just created shows up. All right, let's go back to view list. Now, if you open this disclosure, you'll see that everything is in a read-only view. You cannot make changes to the disclosure once it has been sent off for review. Now, inventors may get a disclosure sent back to them to do some kind of a rework. And if that happens, then this would be opened back up for editing. Another thing to note is the comment appears here. So Inventor 1 added a comment on today's day. it shows up here. And you can always add another comment, or as many as you want, and that shows up. And then if the reviewer adds comments, that'll show up here. Okay, so that is the process for submitting a disclosure. Now, the last thing I want to mention are emails. So emails can be sent to you when different things occur in a disclosure's journey. For example, when a disclosure is started and not yet submitted, you will get an email, or the inventors will get an email basically stating something along the lines of, you've got an action to complete this disclosure by clicking the submit button. If the disclosure changes status, maybe it goes from here to here or here to here, you will also get an email. And just an FYI, your disclosure has been pushed to the patent committee for review, or placed on hold, or sent to an attorney to generate a patent application. And then if you received a rework request from either here or here, you would be notified that you've been asked to rework the disclosure. Any comments left will appear in that email letting you know what needs to be changed.